Mercifully, we come to the end of the Summerslam review series. Yippity skip. I'm glad that it's here. I enjoy going back and watching these shows sometimes. I enjoy re-reviewing them, but it's also nice whenever you get to the end of a series as well. There's no question about it. It takes weeks to get to this point. So let's celebrate a little bit, have a little fun talking about SummerSlam 2012, or at least as much fun as we possibly can. Yes, I checked, and SummerSlam 2010 was still incredibly stupid in the drizzling shits, and I'm sorry to inform you, but SummerSlam 2011 still sucked too. SummerSlam 2012 wasn't a whole lot better. I mean, this show doesn't piss me off as much as 2011 does. I don't think it was as bad as 2010 was. But it was still far from a great show, and it still definitely had its problems. Like right from the very beginning, even before the official show begins, you've got Antonio Cesaro with I forgot he was with Oksana at the time. Oh, good Christ, that was 2 years ago now. That time flies quickly. He beat Santino on the pre-show to become the excuse me if I could talk, the new United States champion. Here you go. You've got Cesaro winning his first title in WWE, and it's done on a pre-show. That just about figures. And you look where he's at 2 years later, and where is he at 2 years later? Wow. That's all I got to say is wow. It's just a lot of these things. You look at these guys and look at the names on here, and you see where they're at 2 years later, and it's just like, wow. All right, so the official show kicked off with Chris Jericho versus Dolph Ziggler, and this was a nice, I guess you'd say, nice little feud for the summer there in 2012. This match was good. I don't personally think it was great. I think, as is no surprise to me for sure, that it was classically overrated by the internet wrestling community because it featured Chris Jericho and Dolph Ziggler. Again, like I said, it was all right. It was a very good opener for a pay per view, but a 5-star classic this was not. And the thing that always puzzled me about this was why did, of all the people that Chris Jericho's lost to over the years on pay per view, Christ, John Cena way back in the day, hell, I think didn't he lose to Evan Bourne on pay per view once? Now here we get to SummerSlam 2012 at a time where Dolph Ziggler really needs a signature victory over a guy like Jericho. And here's Jericho beating Ziggler by submission just so that way the next night on Raw, he could sit there and lose to Ziggler. And this felt kind of cheap, and it felt like a jip job in a way because it's like, why not have Ziggler go over here and then the next night on Raw, you sit there and have him beat Jericho again? Ziggler needed this, and I was very disappointed that they didn't have him do it. They didn't have Jericho do the job here. Head scratching to say the very least. Then you got Daniel Bryan versus Kane in a solid but not spectacular match, and nor was it designed to be. It was setting the table for what was to come with Team Hell No, which was some very good stuff. And this was at a time where you really needed to undergo a necessary rebuild and restructuring of the Daniel Bryan character. Daniel Bryan as a heel main event guy didn't really work. I don't think it ever really worked. Here, you brought him back down to the mid card like I talked about back in 2012. You bring him back, you make him an Owen Hart type of individual who just manages to entertain people. And when you do that, you can end up building him into a bigger star, and that's eventually what happened. And this was a key moment here, this match with him and Kane at SummerSlam. Then you got Miz versus Rey Mysterio for the IC title. Again, an okay match, nothing extravagant, nothing outstanding. I still don't get why so many people don't like The Miz as IC champion because, like I said before, to me, when The Miz is IC champion, the belt is typically going to get defended at pay per views. You know that the champion, The Miz, is going to appear on television every single week pretty much. He usually will actually have some type of real deal, non random feud that he's involved with over that title. And occasionally he goes out there and has some decent matches with guys for that title. Yeah, the IC title used to be the workhorse belt, or that was the best worker in the company, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Miz isn't a bad guy in today's WWE to have one of your mid-card straps around. He does elevate the profile of the belt a little bit here. And right in the middle of the show, it's Miz versus Rey Mysterio for the IC title. That's a pretty solid IC title match right there. And you got the World Heavyweight Championship. Sheamus retaining his title against Alberto Del Rio and whatever. What do you expect me to say? It's kind of funny now, 2 years later, Sheamus is a meaningless U.S. champion, and ADR is gone from the damn company. And this was one of these feuds where it could have been so much more, and I expected it to be so much more, and it just never was. It just didn't work. The dynamics of it, the components of it, to me, they just didn't work. And I was reminded of that as I watched this match. It's not saying that these guys couldn't go out there and put on a decent match, and nor am I suggesting that this match was necessarily bad. But it's definitely not something noteworthy or memorable, in my opinion. And you got R-Truth and Kofi defending their tag titles against the primetime players. And this is one of these things here that kind of frustrates me a little bit because while I like the tag team of Truth and Kofi, I never understood why the WWE wasn't willing to do more with the primetime players. And now you look at 2014, Darren Young is inconsequential to the company. Titus O'Neil, frankly, is irrelevant to the company. And that's very sad. It really is sad. And some of this stuff actually runs through my mind as I'm going back and watching these shows, even just a couple of years ago. And then I look at what's happening now. It's like Daniel Bryan's out with injury. Dolph Ziggler's as meaningless as ever. I'm sorry, even if he's wrestling Miz for the IC title at SummerSlam 2014, he's still irrelevant. Chris Jericho's locked up in a boring-ass feud with Bray Wyatt. The Miz is still IC champion again in 2014. Ray's nowhere to be found. Kane is back to being stupid corporate Kane. ADR is gone. Sheamus goes from being world heavyweight champion to being U.S. champion. R-Truth is irrelevant. Like I said, Titus O'Neil, Darren Young are irrelevant. Apparently, Kofi Kingston is so relevant that the faction that he was supposed to be a part of, they've dropped after about 3 weeks to a month. Oh boy. And then we get to the last two matches, and the triple threat for the WWE Championship just really kind of pisses me off when going back and watching it because I felt really bad for CM Punk. Because this is a time where he's in the middle of a very lengthy title reign, and it's like the guy can't catch a break. He can't even main event as the champion. I think, if I remember correctly, in his 434-day title reign, that's over a year, by the way, 434 days, I think he main evented 4 pay-per-views as the champion. Some ridiculously low percentage. Look, not every time does the World Championship need to main event the show. I will agree with that. However, more often than not, especially with the way shit is structured in the WWE, the World Championship does need to main event the show. Because at some point in time, you cross over into the area of it doesn't matter who the champion is, he's not even a big enough star to be able to be the last match of the night. And in the WWE, don't kid yourself, the main event on a pay-per-view is always the last match on the pay-per-view. That's the way the WWE structure has always been when it comes to pay-per-views. And here you go, CM Punk, semi-main eventing yet another big show as the champion, just like he did at WrestleMania. It's just fucking ridiculous. And this whole thing with Cena and Big Show was just fucking ridiculous. And how funny is it? SummerSlam 2011. It's Cena versus Punk for the title. Who's the real WWE champion? And lo and behold, wouldn't you know, a fucking year later, in some incarnation, here's CM Punk wrestling John Cena again for the WWE championship. You fucking turned CM Punk heel here, which is stupid. It was stupid, and it was a bad decision, like I tried to tell you 2 years ago, plus that it was. You take the guy for no real good reason that everybody wants to cheer and everybody wants to get behind, and you want to get him heat, and you want to get him booed. Why? Because he's associated with Paul Heyman. How that association with Paul Heyman worked for CM Punk? Not very well. And this whole match here, like I said, it just kind of is what it is. And then we get to the main event. The main event, oh baby. Brock Lesnar versus Triple H in a no disqualification match. They actually had 3 of these damn matches, and each one of them had to have their own kind of special stipulation. And what always cracked me up about this match, and I thought it was a really good match, and ironically enough, I thought it was the appropriate match to main event this show, was that after losing to John Cena at Extreme Rules, now here's Brock Lesnar, fighting Triple H at SummerSlam in the main event. Your WWE champion, of course, is taking a back seat. Basically, in a way, it's almost like you're putting over the UFC over the WWE. But it was really fascinating to me how the WWE still at this time was trying to make Triple H a sympathetic figure. They were trying to go against the grain and have Triple H be a babyface, be a guy that tries to invoke your sympathies, get you emotionally invested in his path and in his journey and his struggles. And it just goes over like a fart in church every fucking time. And what perfectly encapsulates this match, and like I said, it was a good match and it was the appropriate finish to SummerSlam 2012, is the fact that at the very end of the show, after Triple H is tapped out, they sit there for several minutes and they try to give you the old sympathy shot of Triple H. Like, oh my God, we feel bad for this guy. He put up a great fight, but he just didn't have it this time. And the fans are chanting, "You tapped out! You tapped out! You tapped out!" I mean, the WWE for minutes was trying to sit there and get you to feel sorry for Triple H, and the crowd in LA was responding with "You tapped out" chants. Just shows how out of touch the WWE has and had become with their freaking audience, and frankly still is. The perfect way to cap off this mediocre SummerSlam. Like I said, this was a SummerSlam that was much easier for me to sit through than compared to, let's say, 2010 or 2011. But in terms of PG era SummerSlams, it doesn't measure up to 2008 or 2009 at all. This is still kind of a boo-boo show, I'm sorry. And that wraps up my sort of boo-boo SummerSlam review series. For those of you that are wondering, yes, come Survivor Series time, I will be doing a Survivor Series review series as well. I've done Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and now SummerSlam is complete. Why wouldn't I do Survivor Series? So you don't have to ask because it's coming in a couple of months. Hope you guys have enjoyed this series. If you missed any of the other, 24 reviews that have come before this, check out the playlist that's in the description box below and get yourself caught up. And hopefully we get a good SummerSlam 2014 come Sunday, but I'm not holding my breath.